I want to talk about college football coaches and hot seats. Okay. So Sports Illustrated ran the numbers on it, and I was building this really big segment earlier in the year before, the COVID happened. It became, throw that out, just how many coaches were fired and how much it cost to fire them. So Sports Illustrated reports 56 coaches, fired, turned over across FBS, FCS. And then there's this fun fact that Dennis Dodd has out here in his CBS Sports column, where $2.67 million is the average salary of an FBS coach. 2.67. $3 million to coach football. The average buyout of the nation's top 10 highest paid coaches is $29 million. Golly. Kirk Ferentz, of course, his buyout's stupid. $22.6 million. And his is the largest among anybody. Which leads me to this question of, who's going to get fired this year? Like, if you know that across the board, everybody's going through financial struggles, everybody's having to cut the budget, you've already asked coaches to take a pay cut. And this time it ain't even of their own doing. Looking at you, Philip Montgomery. But it's the COVID. Meanwhile, what's 10% of $2.67 million? Right? About 267 grand? Or 5 times as much as you're going to make this year? And for some people, 10 times as much as you're going to make this year. And some people being public school teachers, hello. So I don't have any sympathy for them on this. But if you go winless this year at a Power 5, who is going to hold that against you other than your own fans? And would they be enough to get you fired? If it's a pattern of losing, I could definitely see that. Because when we didn't have the COVID, you weren't any good. When we had the COVID, you ain't any good. You need to go. I could definitely see that, right? This would be the year that Chad Morris got fired if Chad Morris didn't get fired. That's where this comes down to for me. This would also be the year where Willie Taggart probably wins more games than he did last year. Because Florida State was going to be that good and they returned Marvin Wilson. Now that's Mike Norvell's squad. And they're probably going to go win more games than they lose this year. Especially as they don't have Florida on the schedule. Florida is trying to get into the playoff this year. They're that good. But I look at these things and I think sometimes the college football is too big to fail. And I know it feels that way, but I wonder if that it should be that way, because things that are too big to fail usually do. And we, as citizens and lovers of whatever those things are, whether it be money in banks or football, usually bear the brunt of that. And I don't want that to happen. I think that the people that make the most from it should bear the brunt of that. That said, we got athletic directors who are forging ahead. And we got a longtime athletic director in Eric Hyman, who has been athletic director at 5 different institutions over 33 years before he retired, saying the dilemma is the dilemma, right? There's going to be a lot more job security than ever before. The turnover is just not going to be as fast as it was because of the economics, but it's going to put athletic directors in a financial pinch, because that's the other part of this that I think, in talking with athletic directors and assistant ADs across the country, just sending a text here or there. They make less than their coaches, but they're also having to work harder in their lives than they've ever worked before. And I've told every one of them, I do not envy you. That said, I kind of do, because I like being at the table, and I like working through these problems, and I like problem solving. I like proverbially rolling up my sleeves and getting to work and coming up with something that works. But sometimes the thing to do is nothing. Because when you're looking at this kind of weight, these obstacles, and one of the things that you have to do is perhaps continue an acrimonious relationship with a person that you wanted to fire in the first place but didn't have the backing or the money to buy them out, that's going to make this even more difficult. Because now y'all got to work together in a way that y'all have never worked before. So I'm really interested to see how the university president, head coach, athletic director triumvirate works out in 2020, because all of the folks that usually have those jobs have tremendous egos. And all the folks that usually have those jobs are used to having it their way. And all the folks that have those jobs have their own fiefdoms. The athletic department is mine. The football program is mine. University is mine. And the buck stops at the university of president, or at least it's supposed to. And then there's board of trustees that make sure that that person does what they're supposed to do. Or at least that's the way it's supposed to work. But at this time, when everybody's like, yo, I'm just trying to keep the doors open. How can you justify football? And more than that, how could you justify buying out a college football coach because he had a poor season in 2020? It's like, nah, this is your reset. And if anything, I'm a college football coach right now, I look at the recruiting rankings. If I'm LSU, look, I'm earning my contract. We have a top 5 ranked recruiting class. We've had 4 commitments in the last 2 weeks. All of them are blue chippers. We have 14 composite blue chippers in a 16-man class. You know, Clay Helton, just to say the same thing. We're recruiting among the top 10 in the country. We're right there. Mac Brown had 37 kids test positive for the COVID. They need to shut down involuntary workouts. You know what he responded with? The number 1 cornerback in the 2021 class reclassified so that he can get to campus in August. Why? Because Tony Grimes isn't going to wait for Princess Anne to decide that they're going to play football in February. He's going to say, nope, to hell with it. I'm just going to go to Chapel Hill. What a flex to be able to get your graduation done in a month so you can go take classes at North Carolina for football that may or may not occur. What a flex. Like, I love that story. But I also am really interested to see what this looks like at the bottom half of college football. You know, like, Oklahoma State administration used this time to get leverage over Mike Gundy because Mike Gundy made problems for Mike Gundy. So now a 5-year rollover clause contract gets to 4 and is definite. That buyout gets precipitously lower, right? Because it no longer amounts to what it amounts to. And as Bill Haston put it in the Tulsa World a couple Sundays ago, Mike Holder's in charge again. I'm not prepared to go that far because I want to see what happens the next time Mike Gundy puts his foot in his mouth. And we go from there. Speaking of which, not a birdie told me, I need to rephrase this. There's going to be some big news about Mike Gundy, of which is the kind that is going to make that OAN thing look wholly different, right? And it's of the sort where we do a simple thing called open records request, FOIA, and you look at the emails that are sent from that account to OAN, and you find out some really terrible stuff, or at least terrible to me. But it's not, it's more of that. It's more of this time of being idle and people figuring out what it is that they care about or don't care about. It's this time of, I've used to read and read widely and to watch the data and to see what the CDC is reporting, among other things, that black folks are 5 times more likely to not just catch the COVID, but get sick and die of the COVID. That Native American people are 5 times more likely to catch the COVID and get sick and die of the COVID. You know, and that the segregation that we have in residential housing districts, like we have in North Tulsa and South Tulsa, and they don't look similar, contributes to this, right? At a time when college football coaches are still making millions of dollars even when the COVID hits. Like, that's the part of this that I think needs to ring out. Everybody losing money. Everybody losing money. But even the millionaires stay millionaires for coaching football. Reminds me of that line of Friday Night Lights. You know? It's like, with the president, can he hit a baseball? I said he win a state championship, you pay him that $100,000 in 1988 to coach high school football. You know what makes coaching football appealing? The money. Coaching football's not really that glamorous. And the dudes that can chew film and can do the X's and O's usually can't recruit. And the guys that can usually recruit can't do the X's and O's. And the guys that can do both are Lincoln Riley. Like, it's really that simple. You're usually good at one and not the other. We all thought that Tom Herman could do both. Turns out his offense got to change, but he's still a hell of a recruiter. You know, you run that, what my buddy Jaron Strosky calls blackjack power spread, where you're going to be right more often than you're wrong. You don't really have to scheme. It's like, no, we turn it into a math problem. But the math problem now is, what do you do when you have a crappy football season that doesn't turn out as much money as even you budgeted for in a budget crisis, and you're strapped with a football coach that's still making the majority of the money that the athletic department raises. Needs to be a reckoning in college football. Barry Switzer made $24,000 his first year at Oklahoma. Today's money, that's like 150 G's. What happens if all these college football coaches made no more than 150 G's? Maybe we wouldn't have the financial crisis that we have. Maybe Stanford doesn't have to cut athletic programs. Maybe athletic programs don't need to be cut at all. Because let you find out that it doesn't cost more than 150 grand to run a softball team. And then what? You know? But asking these coaches to give back that money so that the university can get better, that is uniquely not what they're going to do.